Have you ever wondered how you can create these amazing animated websites in Figma? Today I'm going to show you how you can do just that. In fact, I want to show you how you can also develop it using Webflow. So by the end of this video, you'll not only have this design file with you, but you'll also have the development file and you'll learn how to create many more designs just like this one so you can impress your clients. I leave in the description the full Figma file so that you guys can take a look at it and you can use it as a template. That being said, let's go ahead and jump in. We'll first learn how to create the desktop design and animation. Then we'll learn a feature in Figma called auto layout that will allow us to export this design to Webflow, where we'll be able to do some touch-ups. Then we'll go back to Figma and create our tablet and mobile versions. We'll import them to Webflow, and lastly, we will create our animation in Webflow. Alright, so now we're gonna start with the design phase, and then we're gonna move on to the development. In the design phase, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna do our prototypes for the desktop version, and then we're gonna do the auto layout function in Figma. And what this function allows us to do is to copy our design from Figma, a design software, to Webflow, a development software, so we'll have the website ready to go and live. That being said, I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna start by showing you guys what I have here. I prepared the fonts, so I have the audio-wide font, and this is a Google font, by the way, so you guys can download it from Google Fonts. Same for Poppins. And I'm gonna be using audio-wide for the headings and Poppins for the body text and the CTAs. And you guys can click the link in the description if you wanna check out the fonts guide that I created for you. It's gonna just make it really easy for you to know what the size of the text should be in your designs. So this is like a general guide that I'm also gonna be using in today's video. So let's go back to Figma now, and we can also see I have two colors, so the main color and the background color. Without further ado, let's create a new page for the design. I'm gonna call it web design, and just for you guys to see what we'll do now, this is what you can expect to have. We'll have the prototypes, so the design with the animations, and then we're gonna do the design but with auto layout, so it's ready to go to be copied and pasted to Webflow. So going back to our new file, let's click on this new frame right here because we want to add a section. So a frame is like a section that we're adding. So this is our first section, right? So now we can choose desktop, and then we can choose, the desktop frame. We'll have the width 1440 and the height 1024. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our background color, this one for the background. So let's copy it, let's paste it. Okay, there you go. Now, if I go back to the design, we want our character to be on the right side, and we want text content and the CTAs to be on the left side. And we want our logo, obviously, to be on the top left. So this is the nav bar. So we just have the logo now. We don't have any other pages because this is just like one page design with two sections. So the logo, I just created it from scratch in Figma, but you guys can import your logo as a PNG or SVG. Everything works. But for now, I'm just gonna copy and paste it. So really simple. I'm just gonna copy and paste it, and it doesn't need to be 100% correct. Like the layout is just general here because in the auto layout we're gonna have everything perfect. So let's go back here and get our character. So let's copy and paste our character. So we'll move it around here. There we go. Now I'm gonna go back and use this color to create a rectangle behind our character. I'm gonna click on this rectangular shape and I'm gonna draw a rectangular shape. So probably this works fine. And of course we want to make sure that we add this rectangle within our frame, and we need to position our layer behind the character. And so the way we do this is by just dragging this layer that we have and bringing it behind our character, and that's it. Now we can change the color, and there we go. Now we still want to add the text content, so this is the heading. So I can write a heading and we can change it later on, right? And I also have audio white selected, but I'm gonna select the whole heading and change the size to, if I go back to our sheet that we have, I can see that for desktop, we're currently designing the desktop. I can see the heading one is 48 to 64. Now I'm gonna be using the upper limit, so 64 for now. I think works really good for our design because it's not that complex. There's not a lot of details in it. 64 works fine. Now let's add some text. I'm gonna copy and paste our text from here. And of course, this is gonna be the Poppins text. So I can paste it within our frame below our heading, just like that. And for our button, we can just drag, we can click on the rectangular shape and drag from anywhere in the screen the rectangular shape. So we just like form a button shape, and then we can add a text and we can put it within our button. And we're gonna write down browse collection. Then I want to make the browse collection text audio wide as well. And as I told you guys before, we're gonna make sure that the CTAs, so the text of the buttons, are gonna be the same size as the body text. So for now, we're gonna make sure that the body text is 18 pixels. So let me change that real quick. All right. And this one, we're gonna change it to 18 as well. So we just want to make sure that everything is consistent. And this is why this is really important to do from the first step. And so that once we import this design to Webflow, everything is gonna look consistent. So I'm gonna change the color of the text that we have here to the color of this rectangular shape. There we go. Or actually, it's gonna be dark, so black, and the background, so the button itself, will be the same as the color of this rectangular shape. So let me undo this and let me change this one. And like I told you guys before, everything related to spacings of the button and the text, we're gonna fix those in the auto layout phase, but for now this looks good to me. I'm gonna move on by creating a new text. So this is the second CTA that we have. I'm gonna call it subscribe. Now if you guys want to organize everything, you can also change the name of your layers to your liking, but for now I'm just gonna keep it as is, and I'm gonna change the color of the subscribe text. This looks good. So for me, everything looks great. Of course, this looks a bit more, filled in just because of the text that we have here. So, I can easily replace the heading with the specific text. So let's do that real quick. Let's bring down all our layers. So let me just bring them down just like that. All right. So something like that looks good. I'm also gonna group the text and the button. So both of these, and I'm gonna call them button layer, the button group that we have. All right, now I can move on to the second section. So let's create another section, so another frame that has the same resolution, so 1440 by 1024. And I also want to make sure to select the same background that we used for the first section. And for here, let's go back to our original design. So we want to have text content on the right side, and on the left side I want to have the image in the center. So I'm gonna start by copy and pasting my image, or I can bring it from the assets here. So this image right here, I can copy and paste it in this frame. There we go. I can change its position to the center. There we go. Now I wanna create text. So it's essentially the same process as we did for the first section. So for now, I'm not gonna show you it again. I don't wanna waste your guys' time, so I'm gonna just copy and paste them, and then we can move on to the animation before we proceed with the auto layout. Alright, so we just finished our design, and now it's time to do our animations. And surprisingly, this is the easiest phase of them all, so it's gonna be really fun. Let's get started. First of all, let's envision how we want our animation to look like. So once the user opens up the website, they'll see the content sliding in. So the first section content, they'll slide in, and as they scroll to the second section, they'll see the first section content slide out of view while the second section content slide into view. So now that we have in mind the animation and how it will look like, we can go ahead and implement it. So let's start by creating a new frame, and this frame will actually add it in the beginning. So let's duplicate this frame, the first section frame, and add a frame before it, just right before it, where the content slide into view. So we don't want to delete anything here. We actually want to move everything, so all the content out of view, so that once we link the first frame to the second, the content will slide into view. And the way we do that is by linking the first frame to the second one, and we'll just click on Smart Animate, and this will allow the content to slide in, right? So it's really easy. Now we also want to make sure that the name of the text of both frames are the same when it comes to the elements that we want them to be the same. And so we want Figma to recognize, for example, that the robot here is the same as the robot there, right? So we want these elements to be the same name, and the same for the text here and text there, and the CTA here and CTA there, right? It makes sense. So let me just make sure they have the same name, and then we can just go ahead and slide this robot out of view, and same for the text content and the CTAs. Let's slide them out of view as well. And let's do the same thing for our logo. So I also want to, just have the logo slide out of view. And I just want to make the rectangles just slightly slide in to the left side. Now I want to make sure to go to the prototype tab and link the first frame to the second one. So that's just the last thing before we view our animation. So I have just played around with these settings just a bit, but for you, just make sure that the trigger is on click, so that once you click on anything on the keyboard or on the mouse, the animation will play, and then the action will be navigate to the desktop one, which is the second frame. So from this one to this one, the animation will be smart animate. So just make sure to change it from instant to smart animate so that we have total control over how the animation will look like. And then the curve, we wanted to set it to custom because we also want to have control over the smoothness of the transition. So also the duration, let's increase it. Figma set it to 300 milliseconds in the beginning, but it's really fast. So let's just increase it. I think 1800 milliseconds works just fine. And then for the Bezier, I think this curve is the best. So this is just gonna make it smooth and the best for what we need, right? Now let's just hit on play, and this is the animation that we'll have. So this is exactly what we want. Now the first animation is done. Let's do our second animation. So when the user is scrolling from the first section to the second. So before I link the second frame to the third one, so the first section to the second one, what I want to do is I want to also copy and paste the content that I have here in the first section or in the second frame. I want to just copy it, right? I want to paste it in our third frame, just like that. And we're going to do the same thing as we did right here, but now we just want to make them slide out of view. So we're going to select the character in the beginning and move it to the right side. We're going to do the same thing for the rectangle, and we're gonna also do the same thing for our logo and the CTAs and the text content. So once you guys do that, now what we need to do before we finish the prototype and we review it, we wanna also copy and paste the content of the third frame to the second frame, right? And the reason we want to do this is because our content, so here it's not gonna be visible in this frame, but we want it to slide in from out of view to into view. So they're gonna be out of view here, but they're not going to be visible, and as someone scrolls we can see them, so because we don't want to just have them fade in, right? So it just makes sense to do that. Let's copy the content that we have here, let's paste it here, and let's move them out of view, and always make sure that they have the same name, so they're linked, and so Figma knows that these are the same element. There we go. So this is our animation. Now I want to review it before we move on to the auto layout. So let's see how it looks, and also make sure to link the second frame to the third one. So make sure it's linked to the third frame, and the settings should be saved. And now if I preview the animation, this is what we're left with. And this is exactly what we want. All right, so we just finished our prototypes phase, and now we want to create the auto layout design. The auto layout design is really important because we will be able to import the design that we just created using auto layout to Webflow. That being said, auto layout is really simple, and I'm gonna try to explain it as simply as possible for you guys because I feel like some people really complicated. So here we have a group, we have a text, and then we have a subheading, and we have CTAs. Here they're vertically aligned, which means that we can create an auto layout, a parent auto layout, and then we can vertically align the elements inside of this auto layout, right? And the way we do this is by changing the settings of the auto layout itself, because these elements are the children of the specific auto layout, and this is basically how it works. And it might sound a bit complicated, but once we start to apply it, so right now you will see how easy it is. So let's create a new desktop, and let's also just copy and paste the background color that we're using, and let's bring this logo that we have outside this frame. Now just trying to envision what we want to have. Okay, we want to have two main auto layouts. We want to have the nav bar. The nav bar is an auto layout because we want to have the logo. So this logo right here will be positioned to the left side of the nav bar, and we also want to have this auto layout as well. So this is another auto layout, right? And in this auto layout we have the text content on the left side and the image on the right side, so the auto layout should be horizontally aligned. And the main auto layout is basically this section where we will have both of these children auto layouts inside, and the section itself will be vertically aligned, right? Because we want to have the logo above the second auto layout. makes sense. So let's start by adding our auto layout to the logo. So now we have this logo inside of this auto layout, and we'll just call it nav because this is our nav. And now we can import it to this section, but first of all, let's add it as an auto layout. And the way we add an auto layout is by clicking on Shift A, or we can just right click and click on add auto layout. And I want to import now my nav. As you can see now, this nav bar is positioned to the left side, and that's because if I select the main auto layout, so this section, the desktop 4, you can see here the alignment is set to the left side, hence why you can see the position to the left side. So if I center it, you can see now it's centered. I'm gonna keep it to the left side because this is our nav bar and this is the logo. And then I'm gonna select my nav bar, and as you can see now, the width is set to hug, so the nav bar is hugging the logo. So let's just change the width to fill, from hug to fill, and now it will just fill in the whole section, right? And it will just cover the whole width, right? And now I can select the nav bar and I can position the logo to the left side by changing the alignment to the left, just like that. Now we're done with the nav bar. Let's start by copy and pasting our elements. I'm gonna copy and paste them by holding Alt and releasing after I want to just release and see the text content. And then I'm just gonna click on Shift plus A to turn this into an auto layout frame. I'm gonna also have both of these in an auto layout frame, and I'm gonna center them so I can just have everything centered inside of this auto layout. And now we still want to do one more thing. The button itself is not functional, it's not a real button because I just drew a shape and inserted text inside of it. What we want to do is we want to create a new text. So I'm gonna actually copy and paste this one that we have, and then I'm gonna click on Shift A, so I'm gonna add an auto layout text, and then I'm gonna click on this plus sign next to fill, and I'm gonna change the color to the button color that I'm using. Now it looks really good. We still want to add some padding, and this is where you can change the spacings for the borders. So for me, I feel like a good spacing for the top and the bottom side is like 15 on these sides, so the left and the right side, I think 20 is good. We can add a shadow by clicking on this plus icon next to effects, and then where we have this icon next to the drop shadow, I can change the color to the shadow color that we want to have, change the blur to 40 just to have some, you can just see it better, right? And I feel like this is really nice. Now I want to replace this button with this one, and so I'm just gonna drag it inside our auto layout frame right here, and I'm gonna delete this one, and this is it. So now this is our auto layout. I can just import it. I can see now they're horizontally aligned. That's because when I click on this section itself, I can see that I selected the horizontal layout. So I'm gonna change it to vertical layout, and now we can see that the width of the section is hugging the content inside of it. So I can just change the hug to fixed width, and I can extend it our wanted width just like that. Right, now I'm also gonna position the nav bar above the text content just like that. And now I'm just gonna finish off by bringing this image and adding an auto layout to it, importing it to this section. I'm gonna select both of these. I'm gonna add an auto layout for them, and I'm also gonna horizontally align it just like that. I also want to add, so I want to change the fill, the width to fill, and the height to fill as well. So the width and the height just fills in the section just like that. And now I still want to add some spacing to the borders, and I don't want to have spacing to the bottom. So let's start by adding some spacing here. So I'm gonna select the whole section, and then I'm gonna add some spacing to the left side. So maybe just add to 70 is hopefully good. Yeah, that looks good. And I'm also gonna add some spacing to the top just like that. This is good. Now I still want to move the robot to the right side, so I'm gonna select this auto layout, this frame right here, and I'm gonna set the spacing between elements. I'm gonna change it from 10 to auto. Alright, and I can also see some spacing here that I can fix. So let's just remove it by, first of all, I can select the whole auto layout, so the whole section, and then I can remove the spacing from the bottom. And then another thing that I can do is by selecting this frame right here, can set the height to fill, right? So it just fills this auto layout. And then I can also see that we have definitely some spacing. So I'm just gonna select this one right here, and I'm gonna remove the bottom spacing. Right, and yeah, I'm gonna also set this right here. I'm gonna set it to this. I'm gonna position to the bottom. All right, now one last thing I want to do is I want to center the alignment of this auto layout frame, because I noticed the text aligned to the top, so I don't want to have it aligned to the top. I actually want to center it. So we can change the alignment here to the middle, so I can align it to the center, and there we go. Now one last thing we still have to do is just to import this rectangle. So let's copy and paste it outside the frame, and I want to bring it in this frame. Actually, I don't really have to add an auto layout because it's just like a single frame, and I'll tell you why in a second. Once I import it, as you can see, the design will look messed up, and that's because I added a new auto layout, and I've already like finished the whole design, right? And it's not within a specific auto layout, and I don't want it to be in a specific auto layout because I want to position it behind this image, right? And the best way to do this is by selecting this icon so that we ignore the auto layout, right? And this is just gonna make the position of it absolute, so I can just change it wherever I want, and it's not gonna affect really anything. And now I can position it just behind the character by changing the layer somewhere around there. All right, and that's everything. Now we can start with our second section. So let's start by creating a new frame, and let's make sure that we use the same resolution that we're using for the whole design. And from there, I want to change the background color, and I want to import our elements. So let's bring them outside this frame, and let's add an auto layout to them. So Shift A, and Shift A. And I'm also going to add an auto layout to the section, so it becomes an auto layout section. And let's import lastly the auto layout frames, just like that. So we still want to fix a few things. As you can see, the positioning here, the layout is not the best. So I want to select the section itself. I want to change the spacing between elements to auto. And we also want to add some padding to the top side until the border of the image is touching the bottom of the section. So something around there. And I also want to add some padding to the right and the left side, just like that. Now, one last thing we still want to do is we want to change the button as we did for this section right here. It's gonna be the same thing, but I just want to change the corner radius. I want to change it to hard edge because I want to keep the buttons consistent throughout the whole design. So let's start by just dragging our text. So I'm gonna select the text, I'm gonna drag it outside the button, and I'm gonna add an auto layout to it, and I'm gonna add a fill color. Now the color that we have here is a gradient, so we have two main colors. So this color right here and this color right here, and we added this color in the center, and these ones are on the right and the left side of the button. So let's add them. I'm gonna start by selecting it and going to the gradient tab right here, and let's change this color like so. And I'm gonna also select the second color that we're using, and I'm gonna copy and paste it in our second button. So right there. I'm gonna add another one, and this one is going to be, this one's gonna be in the center, and this one's gonna be on the right. So there we go, we just created the button. I wanna add some padding, and I also wanna add the shadow using this specific color. So let's just click on the plus icon and add the shadow color. So let's add the opacity, and let's increase the blur to 40 pixels. This looks really good. So let's just add some padding right here on the sides. So this is probably similar to it. There we go. Now we can also fix the padding and everything in the Webflow and the development phase, so they're gonna be perfect. But for now, I think this looks really good. I'm gonna delete this button right here, and I'm gonna replace it with this one right here. So first of all, I'm gonna import it to this frame right here, and then let's delete what we have here. Alright, so this looks good to me, and we just finished the auto layout, and now it's time to move to Webflow. So we're gonna import the auto layout design to Webflow. Okay, so now that we finished auto layout, it's time to move this design that we just created in Figma to Webflow. And the first step in doing so is to open up the plugins tab in Figma and download the Figma to Webflow plugin. And after it loads, you can go ahead and connect this plugin to the Webflow website that you just created. For me, I just created this website right here. It's still empty, and to connect it, it just takes like 5 seconds. After you do this, we want to go back to Figma, and we want to select the first section and click on copy to Webflow. Before we paste it in our Webflow editor, we want to go back here and click on the 3 dots here and click on settings. We want to go to the fonts tab, and we want to download the Poppins and the Audio White font. font from the Google font list right here. I just downloaded them, and I also downloaded different sizes for the Poppins font. And now, once you finish this, we can go back to the editor and we can paste the first section in Webflow. So let's wait for Webflow to load and let's just paste the design. I'm gonna paste it right there. And it looks similar to what we have in Figma, but we still wanna do a few changes, like the spacing here. Of course, we wanna set the character and position it above the rectangle layer. And we wanna change the text and we wanna fix the spacing right there. And we wanna just make sure that it's responsive. All right, so we'll do that in just a second. Let's go ahead and change now because I didn't import the font of the text from Figma, so the logo text, but I just downloaded the whole thing right here. I'm gonna import it to the navbar and I'm gonna delete the text from the nav, and there we go. Now the second thing that I want to do is I want to position this just above the rectangle frame. So let's go down to position and just select relative. Or I can just select the whole frame and select from static. I'm gonna select relative. Then let's fix the white space that we have, and as you can see, for bigger screen sizes it even gets worse, and that's because we set the max width to a fixed value for the whole section. So we can change it by selecting the max width, setting it to none. All right, now this is fixed, as you can see, but the rectangle is not positioned correctly. So let's select it and let's change the left value from here to auto. It's gonna be positioned to the left side since the position of this rectangle is absolute, and the desktop 7 frame, so the whole section is aligned to the left side. It's gonna affect the position of this element. So let's change the alignment to the right side, and there we go. And another thing that I want to do is I want to set the position here. So in the right side, I want to set it to 0 so it touches the right side border. And I noticed the navbar here is out of place. Let's set the max width of the navbar to none. There we go. Now let's fix the image being cropped on smaller screen sizes for desktop. So I'm gonna select the image, and where it says overflow here, I'm gonna set it to visible. Now a couple of things we have on smaller screen sizes as well. The rectangle shape is really big, and the same issue we have for the character. They're just really big and they're overlapping with the text content. So let's start by fixing the rectangle here. Let's select it, and then I want to change the width here to a viewport value. So instead of auto, I'm going to change it to viewport, and the viewport value will just make the width of the rectangle consistent and responsive with the size of the screen, so it becomes more responsive. So for now, I'm going to change it to like 35 viewport. All right, and let's see now how it looks. That's really good, and that's exactly what we want. I want to also fix the character. I'm going to select the character, and the max width here says 100%. I want to change it to none. This is now responsive, and I still just want to add some padding in between the elements here. So let's select the text, the heading, and let's add 20 pixels of padding to text. Same thing for the subheading. And that's it. So we just finished the first section, and it's time to import the second section. Actually, before I do that, I just noticed some really small spacing here, just like attention to detail stuff. But to fix it, we'll just select the character, and I'm just gonna bring it down just a bit. So I'll go to the frame 51, the parent of the character, and for the position, like I can just bring it just down just enough. Now let's go back to Figma, select the second section and copy it to Webflow, and we'll wait for it to do its thing. And after it's done, we'll go back to Webflow and we'll just paste it into our body. So this is what we have here, and as you can see, we still want to fix a few things. First of all, let's fix the white spacing that we have by going to the max width, setting it to none. Then we have the robot right here, so it's being cropped as well. So let's change the overflow from crop to visible. Another thing that I noticed is the spacing. There's a lot of spacing here. I just want to reduce it. So let's select the whole section. I want to reduce the padding that we have from the top side. So something like that is good to me. And as you can see now, it's not the border of the image is not touching the bottom of the section. But to fix that, we can just go to the settings here, and well, can just like increase the width and I can make it bigger. But there's another thing that we can also do. But for now, let's try to set it to 750 and 750. And another thing that we can do is we can go to the style here and we can add some spacing. And I can set, because now we passed the border of the section, so we can just select the whole section and we can set the overflow to hidden, and this will solve it. And just like that, and you can see even it's responsive for all screen sizes. But now we still want to fix the width here of both of these, so we make them the same. But anything else, it looks good to me. So let's center everything. I'm gonna start by selecting this frame and I wanna check the width of the current frame. And this one is 468. I'm gonna set the 468 pixels to the width of this following frame right here as well. So both of the frames that we have are consistent, and now everything is looking way better. Everything is centered, but the only concern that I still have is the text here is not the same size as this one right here. This one is 42, this one is 64, so I'm gonna change this one to 42. It's gonna be even more consistent. And lastly, I noticed the spacing in the first section between the left border and this frame is different from this one right here. So this one is 70 pixels, this one is 110, so let's change the values to 70 pixels on both sides, so we keep everything centered. And lastly, I noticed the button here is way bigger than the button here. This one has the text size of 18 pixels and this one has the text size of 22. Let's change it to 18. Let's select the whole button. I want to decrease the paddings on both sides here to 40 pixels, and on the top and the bottom side I want to change it to 15. And lastly, I also want to change the weight of the bobbins. It looks really light, so I want to change it to 600, and this should be good. We're good to go. We just finished the design in Webflow, and now we want to go back to Figma to finish the responsive design. Okay, so now that we're back in Figma, it's time to create our tablet design. I'm not going to create the prototypes for the tablet because it's really similar to what we have done on the desktop version, but I'm going to do the design without auto layout and then the design with auto layout. So I'm going to start by creating a frame with the resolution of 768 by 900 because this is usually the standard resolution for the tablet designs. And from there, obviously, we're gonna use the background color that we have here. And let's try to envision how we want our design to look like. So we probably wanna have the same design, except here we wanna have in the tablet version the subscribe text below this CTA right here, and maybe we wanna make the text smaller, so we wanna use what we have here. So if I open up my browser and I go to the Google Docs sheet, I can take a look at the font sizes, the different font sizes, and I'm gonna take a look at what we should use for the tablet design. In the meantime, let's wait for it to load. I'm gonna start by importing content to it. So let's start by just copy and pasting what we have here into the design, right? So let's take everything we have and let's just paste them right there. Okay, so we definitely want to make everything way smaller, and I assume by now it has opened. All right, so let me go down to where we have the tablet. Okay, so for the heading one, we can use 36 by 42. So let's try to use 42. If by any chance it looks really big, we can still decrease it. Wow, all right. So let's change it from there. 42 is really good. I feel like it's right on. And definitely another thing that we can do is just to make the text width a bit smaller. So something like this works just fine. Now let's bring this just somewhere around there. I'm gonna make this one as well smaller, just like that. And let's bring the button and the subscribe text as well. Alright, so this doesn't look bad at all. I do think it's really good. So let's bring in the character, and I want to make the character smaller because it looks big. So let's fix that, and probably we're gonna make it something around there. So for now, I'm gonna still bring this in. Okay, I do like everything so far, and I think this is the design for the first section. Well, let me create the new frame that we have right there, and let's make sure that we have the same resolution as the first frame. So I'm gonna set this one to 768 by 900. I'm gonna change the color. So basically here, I feel like I'm gonna brainstorm how I want it to look like. I feel like the best layout for this section would be we have this text content in the beginning on the top left, then this text content below it on the top or on the left side as well, and then this will be maybe on the bottom right of the screen. So let's go ahead and copy the content from there and let's paste them right there. All right, and of course we still need to change the font size, and I also want to change the body text here. So the body text can be somewhere around 14 to 16. I'm gonna use the upper side, so 16, and I'm gonna change the text size of the button as well to 16, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the subscribe text. Now we can go ahead and continue our second section. So I'm gonna make this one 42, and everything below it I can make it 16. So this one can be 16, this one can be 16 as well. Select the whole thing for now. So I'm gonna select the whole thing and I'm gonna bring it to somewhere around there. Then I'm just gonna make this smaller for now. And I wanna use the last frame that we have, this frame. I'm gonna just bring it to somewhere around there. Yeah, so essentially this is how the design is gonna look like, and then we can move on to the auto layout, because yeah, I feel like it's really good, but I just want to change these text sizes that we have. Okay, everything looks good. So let's start by creating this new frame with the same resolution that we're using. Let's change the resolution to 765 by 900, and while we're at it, I'm gonna duplicate this frame. So this is our second section. I'm gonna make both of them auto layout. So I'm gonna add an auto layout to them, and then I'm gonna change the colors, the background colors that we have, just like so. Let's start by copy and pasting everything. So we'll do essentially the same process as what we did before. So I'm just gonna hold Alt or Options on MacBook, and you can drag it outside. From there, we can click on Shift A. And now we don't need to do another auto layout because everything is vertically aligned there. So I feel like everything is great, so we can just import it. But I'm just gonna copy my button from this section, the auto layout section, because this is what we want, right? So I can just paste it somewhere around there, and then I can bring it inside this frame, drag and drop it right there below it, and we can drag it inside our frame. The width here is fixed. I can change it back. I don't want it to hug the content at all, so this is good now. And let's just bring our logo. So let's drag it outside the frame. Shift A will drag it in, we'll position it right there, and then we'll change the hug to full, set the alignment to the left side, and then we're gonna add some spacing between the elements. Or actually, before I do that, because I want to add the image right here, so let me add that real quick before I do anything. Shift A, and I'm gonna add both of these inside our frame, and the same process as we did before. So Shift A, add another auto layout frame, and then what we can do is we can horizontally align them right there, and then we can set the width to fill, and we can also set the height to fill. Okay, now a few things that we still want to do. So we want to position everything. I can set the alignment, the spacing between elements to auto, right? But then I can also position them to the bottom, and I can select this frame alone, and I can just add some spacing to the bottom side, so I can just move it just a bit, and I think somewhere around there is good, but I don't like the positioning of this frame, so maybe I can select the whole thing again. So I can select the whole frame, this frame, instead of setting it to auto. Yeah, I can change it again to something like this. Now we still want to remove the spacing here, so because we have some spacing, I noticed we have 10 pixels of padding here, so let's change it to 0, and then let's select the whole section and also remove the padding here from it. Alright, so this is good, and now I can add some spacing to the side, so maybe I can set it to 70. I feel like 70 is a lot, maybe 50 is good enough for the tablet version, and let's set some padding on the top side to 30. And another thing that I can do is I can remove the spacing between elements, or I can just bring the spacing, I can change it until it's good. And I feel like this is really good, honestly, but I just want to bring in the rectangular shape. I want to bring it in, and I want to remove the auto layout from it, so I can just ignore it, and then I can bring it behind the character, just like so. And now everything should be ready to go. We just finished everything. There we go. Let's finish our second frame. So we are gonna select everything and drag them outside the frame and make sure that they are auto layout. So for this, we're gonna click Shift A, Shift A, and Shift A, and then we're gonna bring them in, make sure that the section itself is also set to auto layout. But yeah, we already did that, so this is good. Let's bring this one in. Let's bring this one in as well. But before that, let's change the width again to 765 and 900. Bring this one in as well. And lastly, let's bring this one in. Now, one thing I can do is this character, I can ignore the auto layout for it, and I can just position it right there. So I think this is the best solution that we have, and we'll make sure that it's positioned well in the Webflow development. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. Now let's just add some padding to the left side. So let's go ahead and add some padding there, and to make it consistent with this one here, we added like 50. So let's add 50 here. And by the way, I can just remove the 10 from the right side. I don't need them. And here I can also do the same thing. And for the top padding, I can change it to 30. We just finished our tablet design, and now I can just delete that and I can keep the auto layout versions. Let's move on to the mobile design. Alright, so now it's time to create the design of the mobile version. Then we're gonna do the prototypes and the auto layout. It's essentially the same process as for the desktop. So I'm not gonna run you guys through how to do the auto layout and the prototypes, but I'm gonna tell you what I envision the prototypes to look like, and I'm gonna just do a quick rundown on everything. That being said, before I just move on, I noticed on the tablet version there's no spacing between both the text contents right there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select both of them, and I'm gonna click on Shift A to add them both in auto layout, and then I'm gonna add a spacing between elements in this auto layout, so I just space them just a bit, and then this looks good. Now let's go ahead, I think let's add some more spacing. Alright, so now let's go ahead and create a new frame. We want the resolution to be 375 by 700. So this is the standard resolution of the mobile version. Alright, let's start by selecting any section, copy and pasting the background, and let's try to envision how the first section will look like. So I feel like a good design would be, so let me copy and paste the desktop design, because I want to show you guys. So let me copy and paste it right there. So I want to show you how we can have it look like. So I envisioned if we flip this or rotate it 90 degrees, something like this, and then we also rotate the content inside of it, so something like this, right? So let's rotate that, and let's rotate the logo. So I don't know why this is like a cheat code right there. I mean, each time I create a desktop version or whatever, I flip it 90 degrees, it kind of becomes responsive for the mobile version if I rotate all the elements. So yeah, or the design will look something like this, but of course it's gonna be, the width is gonna be a bit smaller, but this is just like a vision, right? So let's start by importing our content to there. So I'm gonna select everything and I'm gonna paste them right there. And now let's use our cheat sheet right there, because I want to see what should we use for the size. So let's use 32 pixels. Okay, 32 pixels for the heading, and the width we can make it smaller. So maybe something like this works well. Let's see what size should we use for the body text and the CTAs. So let me go back now to this cheat sheet, and as you can see, we can use 16 pixels. So I'm gonna do that right now. Yeah, so it's not a good idea to go below 16 just for SEO purposes and also visibility purposes. But so yeah, 16 is good. There we go. And this is the button. I can also make the text smaller, so 16 as well. And the button, we can fix it in the auto layout, but just to show you guys, we want to have it just a bit smaller, obviously, because it looks really big. Okay, this should be good, so we should be good to go. And let's select it and let's bring it there. We still have the subscribe text, and let's just make it smaller as well. So let's bring it down to 16 pixels. And lastly, we want to import the character, right? Obviously we want to make it smaller, the character, and it turns out maybe we want to make this one bigger, so something like that. And I feel like we should be using, just because we want to fit everything, so I feel like we should be using 20 pixels for the heading. So let's do that. All right, I want to make it just a bit smaller. There you go. We can use 16 pixels for the text, the body text, and this is the button. And now everything should be good to go. All right, and let me add the logo, and we are done. And the auto layout is really simple. It's exactly as we did for the desktop version, so it won't take more than 5 minutes to do. So I'm gonna just import this rectangular shape, and I want to set it behind our character, just like so. And lastly, let's import the logo. Okay, so now to create our second section, we want to envision also how it will look like. And for me, a good layout would be to have something similar to this. So we'll have two text content above each other, and then we'll have the image maybe on the bottom, and we'll see how it works out. Let's start by creating a new frame with the same resolution as this one. So let's change the width 375, the height to 700 pixels, and then let's change the background color as well. From there, I can copy and paste the text content, so I can just bring them in. I'm gonna select this text content, bring it outside, and do the same thing for this one. And let's make sure that we make the heading, we set it to 24, am I correct? Let me make sure, 28. So let's set it to 28, and let's set the body text and the CTAs to 16. So 16, I'm going to make the edge hard, so set it to 0. So essentially this is the same process. So I'm gonna see you at the prototypes. All right, so guys, just to show you what I came up with, I finished the mobile responsive design, and the way I managed to do it is I removed the description for the first heading, so explore our marketplace. I kept the CTA obviously, and I also made the future icons smaller alongside with the text here. I made them 12 pixels just for the futures, so these three words, but that's pretty much it. Now this is done. Let's move on to the prototype, and I want to add a first section as we did for the desktop, and essentially this is gonna be the same process. So here we're just doing everything twice, you can say, but essentially I'm gonna finish the first to the second frame, and we'll end it here. So this is the text content right there that we're moving to the left side alongside with the CTAs, and then let's move the rest, so the rectangle and the image, let's move them to the bottom, and maybe the logo we can move it to the side. All right, let's go to the prototypes tab. Let's link the first frame to the second, and hopefully we still have our animation settings saved. There we go, we still have them, luckily. Let's try to click on the play button and see what happens, see what we have here. Before I do that, because now it's playing for the desktop version, let's add a section, and then from there I'm gonna click on the play button. All right, and this is exactly the flow, the motion that we want to have. So it's gonna be the same process for this animation right here. I'll show you the end results and what I come up with. So the animations are done for the mobile resolution, and this is what I came up with. As you can see, it looks really nice, and I've also made my auto layout, and it was the same process as for the desktop version. That being said, we're ready to go into Webflow now and copy and paste everything, and lastly do our animation. Okay, so it's time to import the tablet and the mobile versions to Webflow. We're gonna start by opening the Figma to Webflow plugin, and we're gonna select the first section of the tablet version, and we're gonna copy it to Webflow, and we're gonna wait for the plugin to do its thing. So let's wait for it. So hopefully today, there we go, done. So I'm gonna open up Webflow and paste it there. Now it's gonna be applied for all our screens, but I wanna hide it from the desktop version, and the way we do this is by going to the desktop version and setting the display here to none. Now when we change something on the desktop version, since this is the biggest screen size, it's also going to be applied to the smaller screen sizes, so tablet and the mobile version. But if I change something from the tablet version, so here I set the display to flex for the frame that we want to have visible in the tablet version, it's going to be visible for the tablet and the mobile, but not for the desktop version. So this is exactly what we want. I also want to hide both of these desktop frames from the tablet version, so let's set the displays for them to none, set this one to none as well, and there we go. Now of course I want to fix a few things here. I'm going to start by selecting the whole frame and changing the max width to none. So I want to set the max width to none, and I also want to replace my text logo to this image. So I'm going to select the nav bar, and I'm going to import the image and delete the text. And also now I want to change the character overflow here to visible and set it in front of the rectangle. So let's change the position to relative, and also I want to move it to the right side, because look, when I increase the screen size on the tablet version, I can notice we have some issues here. We cannot see the full image because when I imported it from Figma, it looks like Figma, so the plugin for some reason didn't import the cut off parts here on the borders, but it's totally fine. I can just change the position until it's good. So I'm gonna select the character and change the position. So I'm gonna move it to the right side. There we go, and this looks good. So I just want to make the rectangle just a bit smaller. And first of all, let's remove this position we have here on the left side. I'm gonna set it to auto, and then it's gonna be positioned on the left side, just because we have the alignment of the whole frame set to the left. So let's change it to the right side, and then there we go. And now that being said, let's go ahead and change the width here. So I'm gonna set the width. First of all, let's change it to viewport so it's responsive with our screen sizes. I'm gonna change it to like 35 viewport, and let's see how this looks. This looks good. Now I also want to set the overflow to hidden for the whole section so we don't see these details below. And there we go, it's done. Let's import our second frame. So let's go back to Figma. Let's open up Figma to Webflow yet again. Let's select the second section and we'll click on copy to Webflow for the 100th time, and we still have 2 more times. So okay, let's go ahead and open Webflow, and I'm gonna just paste it and do the same process as we did for the first section. So I'm gonna hide it from the desktop tab. So I'm gonna go to it and set the display to none, but I'm gonna set it to visible on the tablet version. Okay, and I'm gonna delete this random text here. It's fine, let's just delete it, and everything looks good. I'm gonna change the text weight to 600. I feel like it's too light. Now before we do anything, let's set the max width to none for the whole frame, and let's also set the overflow to hidden. And last thing I want to do is I want to fix the cropped borders for the character. So I'm gonna set the overflow to visible, but I also want to position it to the left side. So whatever happens, I just want it to be positioned right here, right? So let's do that. So I'm gonna select the character. I'm gonna set the max width to none, and then I want to set the position to absolute. I want to drag it down a little bit, just like that. Somewhere around there is good. And also now I want to change the position, but I just want to set it to viewport as well. So maybe let's change it -50 viewports. So I can move it. I can still move it to -70 maybe. Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, this looks good. It's not bad. I can just position it to -65. Probably this will do the job for us. No, but I don't think so. So yeah, let's keep it to -70. It looks good that way. Or -67, a middle ground. Okay, hopefully that's good. So I feel like we just finished the tablet version and it's time to go back to Figma. We'll start by importing the first section in our mobile design. So let's copy it to Webflow and let's wait for it to finish. Let's open up Webflow and paste it there. Now we want to do the same thing as we did for our tablet design. So we want to hide it on all the screens but keep it on the mobile. So for that, let's select the desktop version and let's go down to the frame that we just imported, and let's select the display here. Let's select none. Let's go back to the mobile version and set it to flex so we can see it. I'm gonna hide the other sections that we don't want to have in the mobile design, so I'm just gonna hide them right now. And after we do this, I can start by fixing this section. I'm gonna start by changing the text logo to this image right here. So I'm gonna paste it in the nav bar and I'm gonna delete the text that I have. And let's change before I change the position of the character and the rectangle, I want to select the whole frame and I want to set the max width to none. Let's select the character now and let's try to center it. So to center it, let's try to change the position to the left side position, maybe to 20 viewport, maybe a little bit more, so like 23 or 25. Alright, no, this looks good, so I can keep it that way, and we'll fix the text in just a second. For now, let's just get the rectangle here and let's bring it there. Alright, so I'm gonna set it to 0. There we go. This looks good. Now I want to also fix one last thing that I want to fix is as I bring the size down, the screen size down, I can notice the text being 2 lines. I want it to stay 1 line, so we have 2 fixes. The first one is to expand the width of the frame, so the bottom, but we don't want to do that. We will try to make the text smaller So let's select the text. Let's bring down the size to 14. All right, this looks good. And I'm also gonna set the subscribe text to 14 as well. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. Let's select the whole frame now, and let's set the overflow to hidden. And now it's time to import our second section for the mobile version. So let's go back to Figma, select the second section, and click on copy to Webflow. So we'll wait for it to finish. Once it's done, I'll import it to Webflow. So I'll open up Webflow here and I'll paste it right there. All right, now I'm gonna also hide it from the desktop version and all these screens except for the mobile version. So I'm gonna select it there and I'm gonna set the display none. I'm gonna go back to the mobile version, set the display to Flexbox. Okay, so to me it looks, it's not bad. So let's start by changing the max width to none. I'm gonna select with none, and let's change the text here. I'm gonna resize it to 14, so hopefully that does the job for us. It's 14, not 24. All right, there we go. This looks good. Now, I want to also make the padding between the text and the button a bit smaller to make it consistent with this one. So maybe 20 works fine. 20, 20. All right, let's see, 10, 10. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna keep it that way. I think it's good. Let's change the weight to 600 and let's see how it looks when we make everything smaller. So it seems like I want to make the button a bit smaller for really small screen sizes. I don't think there's any mobile with that width, but I mean, you know, just for sake of making it really responsive, I'm gonna fix it. And I'm gonna set the character. This one I'm gonna try to position it in the middle of the screen. So let's try to make it positioned in the middle. So I like that. I'm gonna change the character overflow to visible, and I'm also gonna set it behind these features right here. So I'm gonna select the whole frame itself and I'm gonna set the position to relative. Okay, lastly, let's just change the button here so I can make it just a bit smaller. So maybe let's try to decrease the width to 80%. And let's also decrease the width of this one. So I'm gonna try to make it like 85. All right, but then we still have this, we have to fix the same issue that we have. What if I change the padding? All right, there you go. Doesn't look that bad. Let's increase this one to 85%. So just make it consistent. All right, I feel like this is good. So we just finished the responsiveness for the mobile, and it's time to start lastly with our animations. Everything looks really decent and we have everything ready to go. Let's start with the fun part. So now it's time to create our animations. We're gonna start with the desktop version, then we're gonna move on to the tablet and mobile versions. However, the tablet and the mobile versions are the same process as the desktop version. So in this video, we're gonna focus on the desktop version and then I'll show you guys the end result. Now, we have two types of animations that we're gonna use in this tutorial for this specific design. So let's start by selecting the whole section, the first section, as this is the first section that we're gonna animate. We're gonna go to the interaction panel. We're gonna click on the plus icon next to the element trigger, and the two types of animations that we're gonna use for this video are scroll into view and while scrolling in view. The scroll into view animation basically means as someone loads a specific section in the website, they'll see the content within the section animating. For us, we have the character sliding in from the right side and the text content sliding in from the left side. So this is the first animation that we'll actually do. The second type of animation is while scrolling in view, which means as someone's scrolling, they'll see content animating. So for example, if someone's scrolling from the first section to the second section, they see the contents from the first section sliding out of view, while the content of the second section, they see them sliding into view. So for now, we'll start with scroll into view. We'll click it, we'll click on start animation, and I'm just gonna delete the one that I had earlier on. I'm gonna just start from scratch, click on add an animation, and we're gonna start by animating the first character. So this character, and it's called character 5. So I'm gonna call this animation character 5. Now let's add a new keyframe, and both the keyframes that we're gonna have, they should be set with the move variable, because we want the first, so the action would be from the first keyframe to the second, it will just slide in. So what we want is the move variable, and then let's add two keyframes. So the first keyframe, the character will be not visible, it will be out of view. So let's start by setting the x-axis to maybe, let's see what works. So I'll start by just selecting first of all, and that's the most important part, we need to link this section to this character right here, and we do that by changing the effect to class and changing it to character. And now we can change the duration of the first keyframe to 0. can go back to the move here. Now, as you can see, we'll be moving the character. So I'll move it to 800 or even 900. And the last thing that I want to do is I want to change the easing to ease in and out so it's smoother. Let's go to the second keyframe. Let's set the duration to 1.8, as this is the duration that we set in our prototypes in Figma. Let's change the move to 0. So for now, we just want to move it from the right side to the left side. This is just the x-axis that's gonna change. This is why we're just changing the x-axis. So let's also change the easing to ease in and out. Let's hit save. I can preview the animation that we have. So this is our animation. Now I'm gonna do the same process for the rectangle and for this content right here, and we can do it for the logo as well. So let's create another animation. So while also selecting the whole section itself, you can add a new animation. And now I want to do it for this rectangle. It's called Vectors Wrapper 5. So I'm gonna name this one Vectors Wrapper 5. And of course you can change the name of the layers. I didn't do so in this video, but it might be better for you to organize them. But for the sake of this video, I kept them the same. So let's go ahead and change the effect here to Vector Wrapper 5. And from there, let's also change the duration. We want to set another keyframe. So let's add a new keyframe. Let's set the duration to 1.8. Let's move it. So here it's going to be 0. So this is the last keyframe. And in the first keyframe, it should be like 800, 900. This is good. Of course, let's make sure that we change the easing to ease in and out, just like that. And we just finished the rectangle animation. And if I preview it, this is what we have. Great, I'm gonna do the same thing for the text content now and for the logo, and I'll see you guys when I do that. So this is what I've just created now. I created all the animations for this desktop frame, and as you can see, everything looks perfect. So I still have to do one more thing. I want to add a scroll into view animation for each of them, because now I can select, so this is the first scroll into view for this frame, and I can select the first character, so this one, the character 5. I can exit out of this one, and I can add another scroll into view for my second element, so for the rectangle, and I'm gonna do the same thing for each element I have. So in total we have 4. Let's click scroll into view, select start animation, and let's select the second one, exit out, and do the same thing for the others. So I'm gonna click on start animation, select the frame 48, and lastly we're gonna add the last one, and we're gonna select image. Okay, so we just finished everything, and if I click on publish changes, we're gonna see the beautiful animation as the page loads. So let's go ahead and reload the page. And there we go. This is our animation. Now it's time to create the second type of animation for the first section, which is the while scrolling in view animation. And we're gonna start by adding a new element trigger and selecting the while scrolling in view animation. We'll select play scroll animation, and this is very important. We have the animation boundaries, the 0%. So the first keyframe is set to when elements start entering. The second one is set, the last keyframe is set to when element is fully invisible. And this is exactly what we want. So as the first section is fully visible, this is where our first keyframe starts, and the last keyframe ends when the element, so the section itself, is fully invisible. So once we're at the second section, right? So let's go ahead and start by adding a new scroll animation, and let's call it character 5. And from there, I'm gonna add 2 keyframes. Before I do anything, I wanna show you guys something. So I'm gonna change the class here to what we have. And then I want to show you when I click on the live preview and I turn it on, I can notice that my first keyframe is starting at 47%. So I have to bring down the keyframe to 47%. All right. And now this is where it's starting. I can go ahead and select. So I want it to be fully visible in my first keyframe and fully invisible in my second keyframe. So let's select 0 pixels for the first keyframe, change the easing to ease in and out, and for the 100% I can change the easing to ease in and out and set this one to 900. Alright, so that's everything. I can exit out of this one and do the same thing for the other elements. So I just finished doing the animation for all of my elements. Now it's time to also create a while scroll in view animation for each one of them. So this is the first one. I'm gonna select the first character, and I'm also gonna change the smoothing to 90% because it's gonna be smoother. Right now I'm just gonna exit out, and I'm gonna add a new while scrolling in view animation, and this time I'm just gonna select this one right here, the rectangle. Let's set the smoothing to 90%, and let's do the same thing for everything. So while scroll in view, and let's select the frame 48, change the smoothing to 90%. Let's add the last while scrolling in view animation, and lastly let's select the logo, change it to 90%. Alright, so if I hit publish again now, and if I scroll down to the second section, we'll see everything, we'll see it perfectly. So let's go ahead and wish for the best. I'm gonna load the page, and as I scroll, you can see everything sliding out of view. So now we still want to do the animation for the second section, and the desktop animations are done. So let's go back to Webflow now. So in Webflow, let's scroll to the second section and let's select it. Let's add a new element trigger. Let's select the while scrolling in view, because we're not gonna use the scroll into view here. It's just gonna be while scrolling in view for all our elements. Let's select play scroll animation, and in the animation boundaries, the first keyframe is correct. So it's gonna be while the section starts entering. So while we can start to see the first section, the last keyframe should be when we have the section fully visible and not fully invisible. So let's change this one to start existing, and that's gonna be when we fully see the section itself. Let's go ahead and start with adding our animation. So I'm gonna start with this one right here, and the frame is called frame 53. So let's go ahead and name this frame 53. Let's add 2 keyframes, and from there we can set the effect to class, change it to frame 53. I'm gonna change the move here of the first keyframe, since in the first keyframe you cannot see the text content, so it's going to be outside the frame, so it's gonna be around 500. So yeah, that looks good. And then we can change the easing to ease in and out, and let's do the same thing for the second keyframe and set the position to 0 pixels so we can fully see it. Let's hit save, and I can change the smoothing. I'm gonna do this in just a sec. For now, let's finish the animation. So now let's do the animation for our character 7, and let's add 2 keyframes with the move variable. Let's change the class to character 7. And let's change the y-axis of the first keyframe, because our motion is basically from the bottom to the top. So we're gonna use the y-axis now, and let's change it to, let's see what is a good position. Okay, so let's change to 800 maybe. Okay, let's change the easing to ease in and out. Let's do the same things for the second keyframe, but let's change the y-axis here to 0 pixels. Let's hit save, and let's add our last animation for the frame 52. Let's add 2 keyframes. Let's select class and change this one to frame 52. And finally, let's change the x-axis position of the first keyframe, and let's change the easing to ease in and out. And for the second keyframe, I'm gonna select 0 pixels for the x-axis and change the easing to ease in and out. Let's hit save, and let's add while scrolling in view animations for each of our elements. So this is the first while scrolling in view animation. I'm gonna select the frame 53, and I'm gonna change the smoothing to 90% so it's smoother. And then I'm gonna add a new while scrolling in view animation. I'm gonna select play scroll animation, change the animation boundaries to start existing at 100%. I'm gonna select this character 7, change the smoothing to 90%. And lastly, I'm gonna add the last while scrolling in view animation and apply it to the frame 52. So frame 52, 90%, and change the 100% to start existing. Let's hit publish, and let's see what we have as a final result. So let's just wait for it, and let's reload the page, and let's see right now what we are left with. So this is the first animation that we have, and on scroll, this is what we have. Everything looks great to me. Now we still want to do the animations for tablet and the mobile versions, but I'm not gonna do this in the video because it's going to be the same process. That being said, the tutorial has officially come to an end. If you've made it this far into the video, then it probably means that you're now a legend. You know how to create many more designs just like this one using auto layout. You know how to create a responsive design, and you know how to develop it using Webflow. Now, of course, I didn't cover everything. I didn't cover how to create a whole design in Figma, but I did cover the basics, and I did cover how you can create an animated design that you can use for your clients and your designs. I'm gonna be uploading many more videos talking about the process, how to satisfy a client, and how to design a whole website. I would encourage you if you hit that subscribe button so that you will be stay tuned with all the other videos that I'm gonna upload on this channel. That being said, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.